Brooke Hogan breaking her silence on dad Hulk Hogan's death.
Hulkamania will live forever, man.
When your own daughter voluntarily removes herself from your will 2 years before you pass away, that should tell you everything you need to know about the family dynamics. Sources close to Brooke tell TMZ that in 2023 she asked to be removed from Hulk's will because she didn't trust a single person around him. And honestly, that's one of the most damning indictments of someone's inner circle I've ever heard. But wait, it gets more heartbreaking than you think. Wrestling legend Hulk Hogan passed away Thursday at the age of 71 from cardiac arrest at his Clearwater, Florida home, leaving behind a massive estate and years of unresolved family drama. But here's where it gets interesting. His daughter, Brooke, had already made the unprecedented decision to walk away from any inheritance, and the reasons why are absolutely devastating when you dig into the details. Here's what's really wild about this whole situation. All Brooke ever really wanted was to protect her dad from people she felt were taking advantage of him. But after years of disagreeing with Hulk over the matter, she reached out to his financial manager and had herself removed from the will. Listen to this, though. She literally chose to forfeit potentially millions of dollars because she was that concerned about the vultures circling her aging father. And get this, we're not talking about some small inheritance here. Hulk Hogan's estate includes wrestling royalties that could last for decades, merchandise rights from the peak of Hulkamania, intellectual property that spans movies, TV shows, and endorsement deals, plus multiple properties and investments. This is a man who helped turn professional wrestling from a regional attraction into a mainstream phenomenon in the 1980s. The financial empire he built is worth tens of millions, and Brooke walked away from all of it. But here's the thing, though. When someone makes a decision that extreme, you know there's a lot more to the story than meets the eye.
Sharing an emotional video montage and a lengthy tribute about their complicated relationship.
He's my dad. I love him. And he's so nice to everybody, too.
And apparently, this family has been fractured for years in ways that would make your average reality TV drama look like a peaceful Sunday dinner.
Now here's where the story gets even more complex, and honestly, it reads like a Greek tragedy. This wasn't just some simple family spat over money. We're talking about decades of accumulated hurt, betrayal, and dysfunction that finally reached a breaking point. Brooke was estranged from her wrestling legend father for 2 years before he died, but in 2023, she reportedly told him she loved him in their final conversation. Can you imagine having that kind of fractured relationship with your parent, knowing it might be the last time you ever speak? But get this, though, the estrangement started right around the time Hulk married his third wife, Sky Daly, in 2023. And listen, when you're dealing with a father who's been married 3 times and your relationship with him deteriorates every time he finds a new woman, that tells you something about the pattern here. Brooke revealed why she didn't attend her father's wedding, writing on Instagram that for her own journey to healing and happiness, she had chosen to create some distance between herself and her family. And here's what's crazy. She wasn't just cutting off her dad.
This woman was so fed up with the entire family dynamic that she went nuclear on everyone.
Brooke spoke out after her mother, Linda Hogan, described their family as the worst mess, saying that month that Brooke had cut ties with her around 8 years ago. Think about that for a second.
Less than a week after Hulk died from cardiac arrest, 37-year-old Brooke opened up to her 500,000 Instagram followers.
It was just amazing how supportive my kids were.
A daughter who's so exhausted by her family's drama that she cuts off both parents independently for completely separate reasons. But wait, there's more to this family saga than meets the eye. The family began to fracture following Hulk and Linda's 2009 split, and apparently the divorce was messier than a reality TV reunion special. During their divorce proceedings, rumors swirled that Hulk had cheated with a friend of Brooke's. And listen, when your father supposedly cheats with your friend, that's not just a betrayal. That's the kind of psychological damage that ripples through generations.
Now here's where it gets absolutely fascinating from a family dynamics perspective. Linda Hogan went public about the ongoing family fallout in March, posting an emotional video where she admitted she had also been cut off by Brooke. She said Brooke had a huge fight with Terry, that's Hulk's real name, and somehow that reflected onto her too, getting her cut out as well. But here's the thing though, Brooke was having none of that narrative.
The singer-turned-interior designer honors her pops with a series of photos through the years, and in the caption, glowing praise for the former wrestler. "You were my everything, and I will always be your girl. I'm proud to be your daughter."
Brooke responded to her mom's claims and stated that she had completely separate reasons for going no contact with her parents. She wrote on Instagram that no contact with her mom has nothing to do with her dad, and no contact with her father has nothing to do with her mother. That right there tells you these weren't just interconnected family issues. This woman had individual problems with each parent that were so severe, she needed to protect herself from both of them. Here's where this gets absolutely fascinating from a psychological perspective. And honestly, it's a masterclass in how fame and money can attract the worst kind of people. Sources say Brooke didn't trust a single person around him and didn't want to get caught up in a financial battle when he passed. Think about that for a moment. She was so concerned about the people in his inner circle that she voluntarily gave up her inheritance rather than deal with them after his death. But then it gets worse. For years, Brooke's primary concern was allegedly the welfare of her famous father, with insiders saying her priority was always protecting her father from people she believed were taking advantage of him. And here's the thing though, when someone is that wealthy and that famous, especially in their later years with health issues, the opportunists come out of the woodwork like you wouldn't believe.
Hulk Hogan wasn't just any wrestler. This man was a cultural phenomenon who transformed professional wrestling into mainstream entertainment. We're talking about someone who headlined the first WrestleMania, starred in movies, had his own reality show, and created a brand that's still generating revenue decades later. That kind of wealth and fame creates a gravitational pull for people who see dollar signs instead of a human being.
Thank you for choosing me in this lifetime and for loving me so deeply.
I'm still 12 years old in his mind. He's very protective.
And listen to this. Multiple sources have suggested that Brooke felt her father was surrounded by people who were more interested in his bank account than his well-being. When someone has that much money and starts experiencing health issues, suddenly everyone becomes their best friend. Personal trainers, spiritual advisors, business managers, romantic interests, they all start appearing with their hands out and their intentions questionable.
But get this though, Brooke apparently spent years trying to warn her father about these people, and it created constant conflict between them. Can you imagine watching your parent being manipulated and taken advantage of, trying to protect them, and having them turn on you because they trust the vultures more than their own child? That's the kind of psychological torture that would drive anyone to make drastic decisions. Here's where it gets even more complex. Hulk had multiple health issues in his final years, having undergone over 25 surgeries throughout his life due to the physical toll of professional wrestling. When someone is in that condition, dealing with chronic pain, mobility issues, and the vulnerability that comes with aging, they become even more susceptible to people who promise to make their lives easier. And apparently, Brooke could see right through these people, while her father couldn't or wouldn't. This part of the story just breaks your heart completely. According to TMZ, their final conversation in the summer of 2023 is bringing Brooke some peace in the wake of the wrestler's death. Sources tell TMZ that Brooke feels, quote, lucky and grateful that she was able to tell her dad she loved him during their final phone call.
But in a separate post, Brooke gets candid about their estrangement in recent years. She says their rift was completely blown out of proportion. We never had a big fight. The media has been convoluting the narrative.
Even though that conversation didn't repair their relationship. It happened 2 weeks before Hulk married his third wife, Sky Daly, in September 2023. Think about the timing here. Brooke reached out to her father right before he was about to start a new chapter of his life with another woman, and she used that opportunity to express her love for him, despite everything that had happened between them. That takes incredible emotional maturity and courage. Get this though, Hogan reportedly apologized to Brooke during their 2023 phone call, but the conversation didn't end their estrangement. Can you imagine having your father apologize to you, acknowledging that he's done something wrong, but the damage is so deep that even an apology can't bridge the gap? That's the level of hurt we're talking about here. When an apology from your parent isn't enough to heal the relationship, you know there's been some serious trauma. But wait, there's more heartbreaking details about that conversation. During their final phone call, Brooke told her father she was concerned that he was overworking himself at the cost of his health. In his final months, Hogan was reportedly struggling to breathe, constantly exhausted, had lost weight, and was on oxygen, yet he kept pushing through his health issues. And apparently, he wasn't interested in hearing what she had to say about slowing down.
And listen, that right there might be the most tragic part of this entire story.
So what happened? According to Brooke, respectful disagreements that took an emotional toll, followed by getting pregnant with twins, a scary C-section delivery, and hard recovery.
Guide them, protect them, you know, and it's all about the choices. You can only do the best you can. Just guide them with wisdom, you know, and then just pray to God they make the right choice. That's all you can do.
Here's a daughter who, despite being estranged from her father, still cared enough about his well-being to express concern about his health during what would be their final conversation. She could see he was deteriorating. She tried to warn him to take better care of himself, and he dismissed her concerns. That must have been absolutely crushing for her. Here's what's crazy about the family dynamics here. Even though they hadn't spoken since that 2023 phone call, sources say that Brooke and her husband had actually relocated to Florida in an attempt to support Hulk during his health struggles. So even while maintaining her boundaries and protecting her mental health through estrangement, she was still trying to be geographically available if he needed her. That tells you everything about her character right there.
But then it gets even more poignant. The timing of all this is absolutely heartbreaking when you consider the broader family picture. Hulk became a grandfather when Brooke gave birth to twins in January 2025, but multiple sources claim Hogan never made an effort to meet his daughter's twin children. Can you imagine becoming a mother and your own father doesn't even try to meet your babies? That's the kind of rejection that cuts deeper than any financial dispute ever could.
Now here's where the tea gets really scalding. And honestly, this is where you see the true measure of someone's character. Brooke saddened he didn't trust her to have his back, but bottom line, she's never been about money and won't be getting any from his estate. But wait, she's not walking away completely empty-handed. And the way she's handling even that small inheritance tells you everything about who she really is.
Hulk's kids weathered several public scandals involving the WWE star. No matter how painful, though, they always prioritized family and forgiveness.
She will receive some money from a small life insurance trust that Hulk took out, and she's grateful for that and plans to put it toward her kids' college funds. Think about that for a moment. She's taking what little she's getting from her father's estate and immediately investing it in her children's education. That's not the behavior of someone who's bitter about money or trying to get revenge. That's someone who's focused on breaking generational cycles and building a better future.
It's unclear who will inherit Hulk's entire estate, trademarks, intellectual property, and all the other assets. So we're talking about potentially millions of dollars in wrestling royalties, merchandise rights, and properties, and nobody knows where it's all going. That's the kind of mystery that usually leads to some seriously messy legal battles, which is exactly what Brooke was trying to avoid by removing herself from the equation. And get this, we're not just talking about current assets here. Hulk Hogan's intellectual property includes decades of wrestling footage, merchandise licensing deals that could generate revenue for years to come, and rights to his likeness and catchphrases that are still culturally relevant. The man helped create WrestleMania, for crying out loud. His brand recognition spans multiple generations, and all of that economic value has to go somewhere. Here's what's really interesting about Brooke's decision from a legal perspective.
In California, it is legally permissible for an individual to remove themselves from a will or decline to accept an inheritance, either during the testator's lifetime or after their death. She literally had her father's financial manager execute a codicil to remove her from the will in 2023, which shows this was a carefully calculated decision, not some emotional outburst. But listen to this. The process of removing yourself from a will while the person is still alive requires formal legal documentation. Brooke didn't just say she didn't want the money.
I don't support what he said. He's my dad. I love him. And you know what? The reason why I'm standing by his side on this whole thing is because I know him. And that's not how we were raised.
She went through the proper legal channels to ensure she would have no claim to the estate whatsoever. That level of planning and forethought tells you this wasn't a spur-of-the-moment decision born out of anger. This was a strategic choice to protect her peace of mind.
Now, here's where it gets really complex from an estate planning perspective. When someone voluntarily removes themselves from a will, it typically means their share either goes back into the general estate to be distributed among other beneficiaries, or it gets distributed according to whatever backup provisions were in place. Given that Brooke was presumably a major beneficiary as Hulk's daughter, her removal could significantly increase what other people receive, which might explain why certain people in his circle weren't exactly encouraging reconciliation between father and daughter. When Hulk passed away, Brooke's husband, Stephen Alexky, shared a post expressing sadness at Hulk's death and thanked people for the love and support for his beautiful wife. She's processing this loss privately, which honestly shows a level of maturity and grace that's pretty remarkable given everything she's been through. But listen to this. Despite everything that happened between them, Brooke shared an emotional Instagram post days after his death that gave us insight into their real relationship, beneath all the drama. She wrote that her dad's blood runs through her veins, his eyes shine through her children, and their bond had never broken, not even in his final moments. That right there tells you that underneath all the estrangement and boundary setting, there was still genuine love between them. She emphasized that they never had a quote-unquote big fight like people were speculating. She said it was a series of private phone calls no one will ever hear, know, or understand. That's such an important distinction because it shows
This wasn't some dramatic blow-up that could have been resolved with a simple apology. This was a slow, painful process of a daughter realizing she couldn't save her father from himself or the people around him. Here's what's really heartbreaking about the tribute she posted. Brooke said she was grateful she knew the real version of him, not just the one the world viewed through a carefully curated lens. Think about what that means. She's telling us that the public persona of Hulk Hogan was different from the private man who was her father, and she loved the real person even when she couldn't tolerate the circus around him.
She said she's been to therapy, she's doing the work, and she's breaking the chain so it ends with her. That's not the language of someone who's bitter or angry. That's someone who's done the deep psychological work to understand family dysfunction and chosen to stop perpetuating it. That takes incredible strength and self-awareness. But here's the thing that really gets me about this whole situation. Despite being estranged, despite removing herself from the will, despite all the hurt and dysfunction, Brooke still named one of her twins Molly Jean Alexi, using Hulk's middle name as a tribute. That's love mixed with pain in the most profound way possible, honoring your father's legacy while protecting yourself from his toxicity. Brooke said she knew the real version of him, not just the one the world viewed through a carefully curated lens. That right there tells you everything. She saw past the Hulkamania persona to the vulnerable man underneath, and she made the heartbreaking decision to love him from a distance rather than enable what she saw as his destruction. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is walk away, even when it costs you everything. Brooke Hogan chose her mental health and her children's future over a potentially massive inheritance. And honestly, that might be the most powerful move in this entire tragic story. Bottom line, when your own daughter voluntarily removes herself from your will because she doesn't trust anyone around you, that's not a family problem. That's a wake-up call that apparently came too late.